Before this.
Forget your troubles and your aggravations. We're gonna have ourselves a celebration.
And this.
Your mommy don't mind. Je veux retrouver ma maman. If we have another chance, yeah.
But most definitely after this.
Gone in a young and restless haze. Why did we love, then run away?
Knight Rider fans got this.
This could be our first night together. Listen to my heart and you'll know it's right. Doesn't it seem there's a spell falling over us tonight?
So come on in to the Knight Rider Historian's house, and let's spend our first night together reviewing Let It Be Me. Oh, I guess that sounds kind of bad. Anyways, let's try to figure out how the Hoff's Night Rocker album, which bombed in the United States, went platinum in Austria and reached top 30 status in Germany.
But you can't sing.
A valid point, April. We'll leave that to the fans to decide. Let's get going. Production 57834, Let It Be Me. This episode was written by Robert Foster, Robert W. Gilmer, and William Elliott. It was directed by Bernard McEvedy. This episode originally aired on NBC Sunday night 8 p.m. on May 13th, 1984. It was filmed from February 1st through the 9th of 1984. It was the 41st episode to air and the 41st episode to be produced. This episode had the original working title first of Dream Life, and then after that, It's Only Rock and Roll, finally, Let It Be Me. The synopsis reads as follows. Michael's former fiancée returns and needs Michael's help after her boyfriend is found dead in his dressing room. All right, with that, let's dig in. We have Paul Block here, who will play an important part in this episode, but he walks in holding up this rock poster magazine showing Class Action as number 1. So I did a little digging because clearly, this is not just a prop magazine. So I did a little digging, and here's what I found. Here's the actual magazine from 1983. This is what it looked like, and what they did is they pasted a Class Action sticker over the bottom half of it. So let's take a look here. Let's put them side by side so you can see. It's a little bigger. So there we go. So you can see Stevie Nicks here and the Eurythmics, Duran Duran, Elvis Costello, Big Country, The Fix. And then they cover up Quiet Riot and Iron Maiden and some other ones down there. But there you go. You can buy this on eBay if you really, really want to recreate this prop. Here's Michael wearing his LA Dodgers baseball cap again. We see this, he wore it back in Blind Spot earlier in the season. This would be the last time he would wear it, just these 2 episodes. Alright, so then we get a montage. Michael sees Stevie playing on the piano. He has flashbacks, and of course these are all from Whitebird, so they're blurry on specifically to show that it's a memory, but obviously there's the real scene from Whitebird. And then if we move forward here, obviously the end of Whitebird, that's then the actual scene. And of course, when Stevie is leaving in the police car at the end, there she is. So again, one of the few times in Knight Rider where they reference or acknowledge a past case or a past episode. So, but of course it makes sense here, right? Because Stevie's returning. So here's a nice little minor touch of continuity, I suppose. So they have this little montage scene where Michael and Stevie are practicing. But in the background, we see this guy. He's, I I don't think he has a name in this episode. He's just credited as band member, but his real name's Joseph Burke. But, we see him later on in the episode. He tells Michael, watch out. If you had anything to do with Greg Noble's death, I'll get you. And then, of course, at the end, he saves Stevie from being killed. So, but it's an interesting point here that in this even in this quick montage, he's in the background showing suspicion to Michael, right? Because Michael's come in, Greg died, and now Michael's come in taking his place. And even in the background, you see him showing suspicion. He's watching Michael. He crosses his arms. So I just thought that was neat that they tied that in. All right, and here we have a close-up of the music for our first night together, the song that they sing in this episode, one of the songs they sing in this episode. Of course, it should be pointed out that all the songs in this episode, except one, well, I guess except two technically, are songs from David Hasselhoff's 1985 Night Rocker album. So remember, this episode was filmed in February of 84. The album didn't come out until, I think, January of 85. So this was the first time people were hearing this music, as far as I know. But they had Our First Night Together, No Way to Be in Love, and Let It Be Me were the three songs from this album. We also hear Stevie, later on, she's humming a tune right before Barbara and Paul catch her. And she's humming the Del Shannon song, Runaway. All right, and then there's another song during the climax of this episode, whenever Michael and Stevie are playing on the stage, they sing Oh Sweet Woman, which was not a song from Night Rocker. It's actually a song, an older song by Jim Messina called Stay the Night. And we can also see here the words Our First Night Together and the lyrics to it, and we see Elliot and Walsh. This is Bill Elliott and Brock Walsh, and those are the ones that wrote the song. And if you look up here in the top right-hand corner, you see looks like it says arrangement, or range, an abbreviation for arrangement, Peake, P-E-A-K-E, Don Peake. So we'll have to talk to him about this, but it sounds like maybe he arranged the music for this. Yeah, and here's what I was referencing earlier. Here's unnamed band member, played by Joseph Burke, confronting Hasselhoff. So again, nice tie-in to his showing suspicion earlier. And here we are back at the Beverly Garland Hotel, used many times in Knight Rider. We saw it in Forget Me Not, in Hearts of Stone, Custom Kit we saw it in. We'll see it briefly in Lost Night via a photograph. And of course, here it is here. The 2012 Knight Rider reunion, for those of you who were lucky enough to go, was held here. And of course, when I went, I naturally had to take then and now shots. All right, and then we see our first instance of this mysterious binary code, which then, eventually, spoiler alert, becomes the drug delivery schedule later in the episode. But just for giggles, I put this through a binary to text converter just to see what would show. And pretty much nothing shows. It's just gibberish, which, as you would expect. So, sorry, this is not an actual drug delivery schedule. All right, so now we see Stevie running out. This is an actual room in the Beverly Garland Hotel. And in fact, if you watch Custom Kit, Suzanne Weston's room looks identical to this, which is, again, to be expected. They actually filmed inside the hotel rooms. And yes, while I was at the Beverly Garland in 2012, I went to see what room 168 looks like, at least the outside, and here it is. I did, whenever I went to check in, I did ask them for room 168, but it was already booked. So that would have been really cool. And once again, there's our yellow Volkswagen Rabbit. I'm going to take a minute to talk about how awesome this reverse 180 is, with the music that they play and Kit reversing, gunning it in reverse, spinning around. Just an absolutely awesome scene. And they reused this same reverse 180 in Night Sting in season 4. And for those of you curious about the cars used in this episode, the one we're looking at here is the hardtop stunt car. They actually used 5 different Trans Ams in this episode. So of course we've got the hero car, right? The one with the dash. We've got the insert car, the season 2 insert car right here, which we see just a little bit. We've also got the hardtop stunt car, which you see here. We have the left-hand blind drive car, which is used during this scene where Kit is stopping the Michael and Stevie from going off the cliff. And then finally, we actually have the roll cage acrylic window jump car doing the turbo boost there. And for you fans of locations, this one is an easy one because obviously we have the sign right here, Bellflower Avenue. So if we look at it today, here it is, Landale Street and Bellflower Avenue. There's the sign. This pole is still here today. This house looks like it's changed a little bit, but these houses in the background and this, I think this is an apartment complex maybe, way back over here, is actually all still there today. In fact, if we zoom in, there's that apartment complex right there. And then this is that same street. Kit comes flying around the corner. I always like this kid right here who just stops in his tracks and is watching. I always wondered, is this part of the crew or is this literally someone that was just walking by observing? But this is, if we kind of come back here, right here. So Kit speeds around this side, comes up here, and then turns down this road. And then we come to this. This is an intersection where the car that Kit's chasing flies out of here, makes this van smell out of control. Which, by the way, I think this is one of the vans they used for the class action band van. They just took the sign off the side. So for the longest time, I didn't know where this location was. And it wasn't too long ago that I was looking at this screenshot because there's really no identifying marks. There's no street signs. You do see the freeway. You see a freeway sign up here. So I knew it was close to the freeway. But I was looking at this and I thought, that kind of looks like a volunteer fire department building. So from there, I went to Google Maps in the general vicinity of where they were filming this episode. And I literally just dropped a pin near the fire department and that's where it was, right? So there it is right there. There's that same fire department today. And in the scene, you can actually see this exact same tower. And here's the freeway right here. So Vineland Avenue and Whipple Street. Whipple Street, on the other end of Whipple Street, is where they filmed scenes from A Good Night's Work and Forget Me Not. That's where Gina Adams and Mickey's apartment complex is, right on the other end of Whipple Street there. And then check this out. So this is the scene where the car comes crashing through, hits this green car. Michael has to stop. The car explodes, all that stuff. By the way, there's the yellow rabbit again in the background. But what's neat is, so if we look, this building in the background, there's a parking garage right here. If we look, that building is right here. So this is pretty much the same. This is the intersection it happened in. But if we turn around, look what's right here. This is the Beverly Garland Hotel. So they filmed the episode, a lot of the episode here, and then they just went right out into the road out front and filmed that crash scene right there. So here we have reused footage from A Nice and Decent Little Town, the one episode where they forgot to put the turn signal indent, the plexis and the turn signals in the nose. And then during the montage of Whitebird, when Michael and Stevie are driving, they reused some scenes from Whitebird. This was actually filmed during Whitebird in the first season. We can tell we still have the Chaffee style overhead console there. So then Michael pulls up to Stevie's apartment. And check this out. So Kit pulls up and Kit's trunk automatically pops and goes all the way up. But take a look at this. There's actually a guy sitting in the back seat here with a black stick. See the stick here? If you watch the scene, you can see he's using the stick to push the hatch up. And then see how the stick disappears? He pulls it back down in. So there's a little Hollywood movie magic how it was achieved. And then we pull out and this is Stevie's apartment building. For this episode. This is on Hortense Street in Los Angeles, and there it is today. Still looking pretty much identical, right? Yeah, it is identical. Hasn't changed a bit. So check this out. Michael is wearing a unique leather jacket in this episode. It's not one we've ever seen since, and it's not one we'll see again. So, in the series at this point, his jacket has the sideways V shapes here. This one is pleated, there's stitching across here. And then if we go ahead, look at this. It's got some kind of a ribbed pattern here right across the front of his shoulders. Look at that. Most people don't notice this other jacket, but this is a completely different jacket. I don't know why he's wearing this one in this episode and never wears it again. But so one thing I forgot to mention regarding something that's in an early draft of the script, which I thought was kind of cool. There's a mention in one of the early drafts about, and this is something we never really get in the series, but we find out what happened to the criminals in Whitebird, Anthony Solon and all those people, because there's a scene cut where Stevie fills Michael in on what happened to all those criminals. She says, when they arrested and convicted everyone I'd testified against, it was safe for me to resurface again. Meaning, remember, she was in the witness protection program at the end, so to resurface again. So she said, I kept my new name and just sort of slipped back into life. So that's a nice, just a quick sentence to actually say, hey, Michael stopped these criminals and they actually were convicted and sent away. Normally we just never know what happens to them. But by the way, most of the scenes in this episode, the concert scenes and whatnot, all take place at the Universal Studios amphitheater on the studio's lot. In fact, there's a special note at the end, in the end credits of this episode, saying, it says location site furnished by Universal Amphitheater, which is really cool because they never usually acknowledge locations like that, but they did in this specific episode. So if you go on YouTube, there's actually a rough cut of them singing Our First Night Together, this actual scene. So obviously in the episode you see a little chunk of it and you see some cuts and whatnot, but if you go onto YouTube and search for, I don't know, probably David Hasselhoff, Our First Night Together, and you'll find the rough cut of this entire song, which is kind of neat to see. So this was always funny to me. Obviously, I'm not a singer, but they do this song, and then when they're done, Hasselhoff is like gasping for air. He's so out of breath from singing, and Stevie's not, but he is. And I just thought it was a little bit of overacting by Hasselhoff. But I don't know. Maybe after you sing a song like that, maybe you are winded. I don't know. Any singers out there can tell me, did Hasselhoff overreact in this scene? So Kit's micro-jamming the doors. Take a look at the doors. They're silver with a thin bar and a lock down here. And they're actually different. The lock's above. Fat handles there. Oh well. We have April, Devin, and Michael analyzing the concert footage. And note how they taped out the Texas Instruments label on the back of the computer screen there. Also wanted to point out, this is Rebecca Holden's last scenes, her last episode, Let It Be Me. And this isn't her specific last scene. We see her a little bit later in the episode, but this is her last episode. We have one more episode to cover, Big Iron, but she was not in that episode. So let's, all give a quick thanks to Rebecca Holden for her awesome portrayal of April. As we know, when we start season 3, we have Patricia McPherson back, which is quite joyous, I must say. Not that we didn't love Rebecca, but it's good to have Patricia back. So there's a lot to take in this scene. First of all, this was filmed at Grapevine Mesa out in Pico Canyon. Again, where they filmed a ton of Knight Rider episodes anytime they needed to be like out in the middle of nowhere, where the confrontation with Goliath and Goliath Returns, scenes from the pilot, just Brother's Keeper where the bomb went off, everything was out here in Pico Canyon. But a couple things to note here. First of all, we look at the background. We have a Universal Studios van here, right? We've got the Comtron colors on it. Take a look here. We've got, once again, Joseph Burke, the band member, keeping his eye on Michael, still suspicious. And then here we have this band. So this guy right here is Kevin Hill, a very talented musician. I did a little research on him. Looks like he played maybe with Van Halen for a little while. But here's a really cool background behind the scenes photo taken that day with Catherine and David and him. He unfortunately passed away in 2015, but that's him right there. Also, we have a Volkswagen Thing here. And I'm wondering if this is the same one that we see Jamie drive at the beginning of the 19th hole. It probably is. And there's a little closer look here of Kevin or Kavan in the background. So during this scene, we see this camera truck here. And what's interesting is this is actually one of the camera trucks used to film Knight Rider. And in this scene, they're filming it. So but if you look at the door here, it says camera cars, but there's actually a word blacked out here. It's Casper camera cars. And I think they did that just specifically for this scene. But Casper camera cars is who they use to film a lot of these scenes out on the road. But this is the actual truck that they would use when they're filming Knight Rider. And we got this great scene, Kit's auto driving. Obviously, this isn't the left-hand blind drive car. This is actually the hero car. So there is someone in the driver's seat. That's why the camera's angled this way, so you can't tell that someone is actually driving the car. But we have this nice turbo boost. This is Jack Gill here. So maybe his brother Andy's in the jump in the car. I don't really know. And I don't know who's playing Stevie right there. But then we have this point of view shot. We can see the Bolt here holding the hubcap on the left hand, or on the roll cage acrylic window jump car. And then after their failed attempt to murder them by cutting the brakes, we see this close up of Paul Block. You can see all the camera crew right there in his glasses. And then in Barbara with her giant sunglasses, you can see not only Paul Block looking back, but you can see some of the crew here, and you see what looks like a ghostly scarecrow image there. I don't know what that is, but I thought that was neat. So then we have Michael back in the semi. April's cracked the code, and you get this just barely can see. Once again, we get data here on the computer screen that doesn't match the insert shot. So my guess is just like in previous episodes that we've talked about, this is data probably from a previous episode where we saw a close-up. But when we do see the close-up, we see another set of binary codes. This is a different set from the first time, but just as much gibberish as before. Doesn't make any sense. So whenever April decodes it, this is what we see. Now I have to tell you, I've been watching Knight Rider since I was a very, very little kid back in the 80s. And even when I was a little kid, I know this was probably the first error I ever noticed in Knight Rider. And that's the fact that when they're describing what all this stands for, they say F19 stands for Friday the 19th. But then below it, they have F20. Shouldn't that be an S for Saturday? S20? That's the first thing I noticed. It still bugs me to this day. And there's the yellow rabbit again. And take a look at this. Just admire. This is kind of a really cool and unique car that you never see on the road. A Lotus, what is it? Lotus Turbo Esprit. And we showed this earlier when we were talking about all the different cars, but the hero car. So during most of the second season, the dash on the hero car is pretty much stuck at these values. 2 miles an hour, 2 RPM. With the gauges as is. And we don't know for sure at this point in the series how functional the dash was. It does appear that they still were able to raise and lower some of the values on the dash, but for the most part, it's pretty much stayed just as what you see here with the 2 miles an hour and the 2 RPM and the other gauges where they're at. But I still think there's ways that they can adjust them. And there was probably, even at this point, I know when Michael Chaffee delivered the initial car, there was a giant control box in the trunk, and that's how the dash was controlled. There was probably still some variation of that in this car by this point in the series. So then Kit intercepts the latest binary code during the live concert, which of course doesn't match what he transmits over to April. And then she translates it, and once again, they screwed up. Friday the 24th should be S25. I know. I need to get a life. So then Michael's singing, and apparently he's stopping and talking to his comlink here, which is then shown to everyone. And even whenever he's talking, saying like "Kit, cut the power," whatever he says, micro jam, you still hear Hasselhoff singing. So just a slight error there. And at the end here, they're pulling up to the Universal Studios amphitheater, so Michael and Stevie can sing "Let It Be Me." We've got another Comtron Universal Studios trailer here off to the left, and then we have this cool scene, which may or may not have been intentional, but it really ties the Whitebird trilogy, Whitebird, Let It Be Me, Scent of Roses. It really ties it together when Michael offers to leave the foundation to be with Stevie, which is something he actually does in the Scent of Roses. So we move forward, and I always liked, again, how this tied back to Whitebird. So we have this great scene. Hasselhoff can't watch. He's distraught as Stevie leaves. And then she gets into the van, and the van drives off. So if we back up just a little bit here, and then we see, he's distraught there, and then back in Whitebird, he's distraught, and then she drives away in the van, but back in Whitebird, she's driving away in a police car. So again, just really nice the way they tie all that together. And then the episode ends on a kind of a melancholy note here. Okay, guys. Well, that's the end of Let It Be Me. Some of you guys love this episode. Some of you guys don't. I kind of enjoy it, and maybe it's because I heard these songs as a kid, but I kind of like the songs. They fit with the episode. They fit with the time, 1984. It's really not a bad episode. The fashion, is 1984 at its best, but it's actually really not a bad episode. So, thanks for sticking with me through it, if you made it this far. We've got one more episode left of Season 2, Big Iron, and then, can you believe it? We are officially halfway done with our episode commentaries. All right, guys, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
And now, while we listen to Joe's selection of Knight Rider music that we received directly from Don Peake himself, we'd like to thank these Patreon supporters. Look at you guys scrolling up the screen to my right. Wait a minute, how can you tell which side is my right, since you can't see me because I'm not on camera? Oh well, you know what I mean. We're featuring these fine supporters at our Knight Rider Prop Restorer level. Thank you very much for your support. And for those of you at the Knight Rider History Hunter level, we're recognizing you right now in the description. Now, if you enjoyed seeing this golden nugget of Knight Rider history being rescued from obscurity, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support would empower us to bring you even more of these historical nuggets. We are the Knight Rider Historians. Till next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.